Chapter 25, verses 101 through 200. 101. If, however, you do not follow the real truth, then you must painfully recognize again and again your own foolishness and gain bitter experiences that you live through with anguish. Thus you shall dedicate yourselves neither to religious, esoteric, ideological, nor to philosophical or occult belief forms, but solely and exclusively to the creational truth of all truth, that you find only in yourselves as well as in the nature and in the laws and recommendations of the creation. If, however, you dedicate yourselves to the false teachers and the false prophets and the like, who spread false teachings, then you shall continue to hunger for the truth, because all the truth-unknowers give you only the stones of the unknowledge for nourishment, however not the bread of the truth. 102. Thus, you humankind of earth, do not let yourselves be made irrational through false teachings of false prophets and teachers, not through masters, gurus, or the like, as well as not through religions, ideologies, and philosophies, etc. Because all of them are only dedicated to the irrationality and worship gods and tin gods, as a result of which they turn away from the truth of the creation and from its laws and recommendations, through which the becoming and passing of the life and of all things are determined. 103. Search not for the personified evil, not for a devil, and not for an antichrist, etc. Because that which is the evil and the devilish exists in yourselves, therefore you must search for and fight against them in yourselves, and not search for them outside yourselves or in an imaginary hell, which is truthfully nothing other than your state in yourselves, which you create through your thoughts and feelings, and out of which you commit evil deeds and bring forth miserable activities. 104. Consider, being only a little awake is enough for you to recognize the falsehood of the godly teachings that the bearers and representatives of the earthly religions, ideologies, and philosophies talk you into believing, who are only directed towards their earthly might and its expansion. 105. They thereby very clearly bring forth that they are the servants of their human intellect, which is directed solely towards school, religious, ideological, and philosophical knowledge, and stands hindering and hostile towards everything which stands in connection with the actual truth of the creation and its laws and recommendations and lies outside of their extremely inadequate knowledge. 106. Through the religious, ideological, and philosophical irrational teachings, you humankind of earth, the truth of all truth remains outside of your earthly intellect-based knowledge, as does the truth of the spiritual and of the consciousness-based. 107. And it is actually your intellect and your rationality that you have brought into a malicious form of unintellect and irrationality through your belief in a godhead or a tin god, because through your belief you have wrongly learnt to consider something as true whose existence you cannot prove neither externally nor in yourselves. And thus your irrationality and your unintellect are the real hindrance for your not finding the effective truth either in yourselves or in the creational laws and recommendations, and indeed, because you are addicted and in submissive bondage to your belief, as well as to the unintellect and irrationality. 108. You have in this kind become in yourselves opponents of the truth, and thereby also opponents of the creation and the creational spirit form in you, which is why you turn away from the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the spirit, and the teaching of the life, which has been brought to you since time immemorial through the true prophets as the teaching of the prophets and the goblet of the truth. 109. You build as highest and topmost on your intellect and your rationality, but to truly use both of them is something you do not understand and cannot do, because you are captured through your belief in a godhead, tin god, or idolized human beings, and are so helpless that you, because you do not know yourselves, cannot build up out of your own cognition the power for your own liberation. Therefore, you need a truthfully guidance as to what it looks like in your inner nature, what you are doing wrong, and what you must do in order to become yourselves, in order to win cognitions according to your own personality, and in order to create love, peace, and harmony in your own inner nature. But you must make use of and do everything yourselves, since this can be done neither by a true prophet nor by those who, as false prophets, teachers, gurus, and masters, etc., swarm around you like poisonous insects that sting you and want to bring you death and ruin. 110. Truly, it is so that the bearers and representatives and all the fanatics of all religions, sects, ideologies, and philosophies, of the esoteric and of the whole occultism fear that they may lose their influence amongst you, you humankind of earth, through the clarification of the truthly truth of all truth, as it is given through the creation in its laws and recommendations. 111. This is the main reason for all calumnies against the truth, whereas the following reason is to be found in the belief of the bearers and representatives of the false religions, ideologies, and philosophies. 112. They, however, do not know the reality of the real truth, namely that no God or Creator is the origin of all things and all existence, but the creation itself, which has let everything come to be through its idea, from out of which it has also created its creational laws and recommendations, out of which all effects imaginable arise through cause and effect, wherethrough nothing comes about through haphazard through chance, but only through the foreordination and determination. Hence everything all around has its regulation, and there is no chaos. 113. There are only a few amongst you, you humankind of earth, who know the reality and the truth about the creation and about its activating laws and recommendations, as well as the sense of the life that is given in you in the evolution of the consciousness and of the spirit as spirit form. And since you are only a few, it becomes balefully apparent that you others, you unknowers, are slaves of yourselves and of your religious, sectarian, ideological, or philosophical belief, and are only fighting amongst people of your kind for influence and might. 114. And if you await clear evidence of the reality of the real truth, then you can find it only in yourselves as well as in the creational laws and recommendations, because you will not find such evidence in the belief in a Godhead, but only opposing things against the truth and its deep reality. 115. True and honest words against the truth do not exist, but rather only ones that are false, full of lies and calumnious. And those who use them fight openly against the truth and raise the evil up as worthy of worship. And all are driven to this. All whose intellect and rationality are insane, and whose power for the recovery becomes constantly more inadequate. 116. In the rationality and intellect of the truth unknowers, who believe in a God or tin God, or in human idols, etc., the calumny concerning the truth sprawls like a poisonous growth as a tool of evil, which has become to you, you humankind of earth, of all dangers the most dangerous. 117. Truly, your human intellect and your rationality have, through an incongruously rapid advancement with regard to the religious, ideological, and philosophical belief, become factors of the fanaticism and of you no longer being able to distinguish truth and untruth, love and hatred, as well as knowledge and belief, and reality and unreality from each other, and consequently are no longer able to separate them. 118. Therefore you can no longer realize that behind everything there is the evil that you live out and that you have created in yourselves through your own free will, and now have the greatest arduousness to recognize it, fight against it, and resolve it. 119. Consider, only then, if you finally fight the evil in yourselves, if you turn to the truth, will it be possible for you to become righteous, responsible, conscientious, and full of love, peace, freedom, and harmony in a fully conscious wise, so that one day, sooner or later, you can raise your head in deference towards the life, your fellow human beings, and everything around you, and stand here as true human beings. 120. You humankind of earth, do not belong to the groupings of those truth deniers who raise themselves up in the fanaticism to the terrorism through the hostile fight against the effective truth and the creational laws and recommendations in the name of their religious, ideological, or philosophical belief, and murder people of your kind for the sake of their belief, wherethrough they become the personified evil and the scourge of the true love, of the peace, of the freedom, and of the harmony, the values of which you have been longing for since time immemorial. 121. If, however, you want to experience the values of the love, of the peace, of the freedom, and of the harmony in yourselves, then you must wake up out of your leaden sleep of the truth unknowledgeness, you humankind of earth, and lay down the heavy burden of the irresponsibility, the consciencelessness, and the unright that you bear, and that weighs on you thousand millions of human beings like heavy stones. 122. Cast off your burden, because it is not worth bearing, not even for a fraction of a nanosecond, and moreover it presses you down so deeply that you lose your self-esteem. 123. But also clear out the empty chaff from your thoughts that you have gathered through belief forms regarding a God, tin god, or an idolized human being, and that flutter away and disperse themselves everywhere if it is struck by even one breath of the truth. 124. Truly, as truth unknowers, with regard to the creation and its laws and recommendations, you have wasted the time, the energy and power of your up till now life for effectively nothing valueful, but only for senselessnesses and terribleness, which you have suggestively and forcefully brought about through religions, ideologies, and philosophies, namely for wars, revolts, death penalties, hatred, jealousy, as well as for murder and manslaughter, terror, unfreedom, and unpeace, together with crime, whoring, strife, revenge and retribution, lying, deception and calumny, etc. 125. But it is time that you finally liberate yourselves from all these evil, terrible things, that you break the chains of all evil that hold you down, and keep you away from all that which is of the good and truthfully. 126. If, however, you remain captured in your thoughts and feelings through your belief in religions, ideologies, or philosophies, and thus in a godhead, tin god, or idolized human being, then you will continue to suffer in blatant untruth, irresponsibility, unrighteousness, and consciencelessness. 127. And if you continue to persist in the unright and in the untruth, then you bind yourselves always anew with that which you learn wrongly through belief dogmas and other false tenets. Because with the new learning, or in the holding fast to belief-based concerns, you force yourselves ever deeper into strange forms that fix themselves as strange authorities in you and rule you. 128. These strange forms, which others have thought up and think up for you, and that you willingly take on, they all include you in strange persuasions, convictions, and make you into slaves of false and strange goods of thoughts, which as a strange authority takes over the might in your thoughts and feelings as well as in your attitude. Truthfully, through the keeping of strange forms, i.e. authorities, you merely make that your own what others have thought up, invented and bent into form in themselves, and which they throw to you so that you pick it up and without thinking believe in it, without searching for the truth in your inner nature, through using your intellect and your rationality, because you eschew the arduousness thereto, and would rather believe and bear no responsibility. 129. It is quite right that you humankind of earth, are as individuals not all alike, and that a great differentiatedness is given from the one human being to the other, where the one thing is not for everyone, and it is such that the one thing is of use to one human being, but brings difficulties to another. Therefore, also, the learning of the effective truth differs in the form of the approach. So everyone must find their own way, therefore, in order to go the way of the truth in themselves, which is itself the truth and the culmination point. Therefore, everyone must find their own way to the way of the truth, in order to fathom the truth on it, and to win thereout the relatively highest possible cognition and understanding. 130. The requisite for the finding of the way to the way of the truth is different from the one human being to the other, as are the capabilities that must be acquired, directed, and used thereto, so that it can be upbuilt upon them. 131. Whoever cannot achieve their requisite that is necessary to find the way to reach the way of the truth, which is itself the truth and the culmination point, they also cannot recognize themselves and remain strangers in themselves. And with regard to what might be learnt, they always remain standing beside it and cannot use it, because it cannot become living in them. Therefore, any inner and understandable gain is impossible, and only a vegetating away is possible. However, a progress is impossible, since they do not really and seriously strive after the light of the truth. 132. Therefore watch out, you humankind of earth, if you really and honestly want to search for the truth given through the creation and through its laws and recommendations, and which you can find therein and in yourselves, because you must know that the way of the truth is in you alone, and it is also the truth itself. Therefore, it is only you as individuals who can discover it and walk on it. And only then, if you follow the way of the truth, and also experience and live it with all the developmental changes, will you have fully comprehended it, and will learn to understand the truthfully truth of all truth, which is free of any belief of any kind, and is pure knowledge and wisdom. 133. Also, while learning the real truth, joy and affliction are permanent companions. But you humankind of earth, You shall not let yourselves be saddened through the affliction, and shall not fall into overcourage through the joy, because you shall use joy and affliction to shake up and encourage yourselves to really awaken in your consciousness as well as in your thoughts and feelings. 134. And if you do so, you will be freed from all daily nothingnesses. And thus you feel in the joy, and also in the affliction as well as in the well-being and in the pain, the well-doing connection with the energy and power of the creation and all its love, which streams through everything living, also you humankind of earth. 135. See the truth. Everything existent of all existence is true life, because nothing is integrated into the lifelessness, but rather into constant developmental change in the becoming and passing and rebecoming. Therefore, good for you, you amongst you human beings who realize the profound moments of the connection with the love of the all-embracing creation, can hold on to it, and are able to swing yourselves upwards on it. 136. But you are only able to do this if you are yourselves and create everything in your own inner nature on your own, and do not hold on to a godhead, tin god, idolized human being, and neither onto any religious, ideological, or philosophical and rigid belief forms, but rather solely and exclusively onto the truthfully truth of all truth, as it is laid down through the creation and its laws and recommendations. 137. Therefore, you humankind of earth, you must strive and evolve as individuals in yourselves from out of your own consciousness as well as out of the thoughts and feelings, in order to come to the truth and to the fine spiritual perceiving of the love of the creation, so there can be true love and harmony as well as freedom and peace in you, in order to then also carry forth these high values, so that you humankind of earth, may profit from them, and so that everything may turn to the best well-being amongst you all. 138. You who strive after the truth, heed yourselves and not the mockers, who are still not open to the truth and the truth life, and stand like ones who are ill in their consciousness, or like drunken ones in front of all the great miracles of the works of the creation, which offer so much, but are not seen and not understood by them, because they are seeing blind ones, who grope their way helplessly through the life and push aside everything splendid of the creation, because they do not realize it in its reality. 139. And you, who strive after the truth, be not confused and do not sleep while learning, so that you really recognize the truth and not claim that only that which you see with your eyes is real, and that there is no life where you cannot perceive any movement with your eyes. Truly, this is not the truth, because even when, with the dying of your body, you cease to be yourselves, the life still continues through the spirit form that disappears into its realm of the other world in order to be reborn at its time, in a new body and with a new consciousness and a new personality. 140. Do not therefore be blind with seeing eyes, and do not deny the living as the opposite merely, because there are many things you cannot see, that are hidden from your seeing, and that nevertheless exist in full aliveness. 141. Truly, there are many things you do not yet know, because your abilities and senses are restricted. So you also do not know and do not understand that not only with space and time are there many things connected, which you have to learn through your consciousness, but also with regard to your spirit. The spirit form, which is a minute part of the creation, animates the human consciousness, the mental block and the consciousness block, as well as the body, and cannot be perceived with the material senses, the eyes, the ears, or through the sense of touch, not through the feelings, not through the smelling or tasting, but solely and exclusively through the fine spiritual perceiving, which stems out of the spirit realm itself, and comes via the subconsciousness into the material realm of the psyche and consciousness. 142. It is a fact, however, that not everything that rises above space and time can be perceived through your human material senses, because all things beyond the space and beyond the time are integrated into more fine fluidal levels and forms, which in turn can be perceived only through factors which are laid out for this, such as the spiritual Gemüt, which is capable of the fine spiritual perception. You humankind of earth, however, you have not yet found any logical intellectual evidence for this, because through your religious, ideological, or philosophical belief you are captured in irrational teachings that lie far from all truth of the true spiritual life, whose fundamental existence lies in the creation, in its love, as well as in its laws and recommendations. And all this lies beyond the earthly or material scaling of space and time, which, however, needs a further way of the fathoming of the truth for this to be recognized and understood. 143. Truth is, you humankind of Earth, that you do not even really see that with your eyes what can be specified in space and time, not even that which is in a single drop of water, so you can only see the life in it if you use a strong microscope, through which you see millions of living creatures that struggle with each other for their existence. 144. Truly, there are living creatures in the water, in the air, in the earth, as well as in and around all plants, and in your food, that you cannot see with your eyes, only through equipment that magnifies them hundreds, thousands, and millions of times. And it is the tiniest living creatures that possess the energy and power and the capability to keep your human body alive or to destroy it, although they are so tiny that you cannot perceive them with your eyes. 145. So you shall not be audacious and dare to claim that you cannot see and fathom anything new and as yet unknown, because of all the manifold things that exist purely in your materially recognizable configuration of space and time. You do not yet know even as much of them as a minute speck of dust of a weight, so you can look and look both in your time and in all future times, and still find no end in the observing and considering, perceiving and fathoming. 146. So in the expanses of the universe you will also find new worlds. Fly to them and open them up for yourselves, as you will also come into contact with foreign people from foreign worlds and connect yourselves with them. You shall think this over. 147. You humankind of Earth, you have a great outlook onto the future and of the ongoing further development, but you have no outlook onto its end, as you have no outlook into the world of the purely spiritual and of the death, which is why the true prophets teach you about it, so that you search for the truth about it in yourselves and can find it, so that you become knowing, wise, and therein full of the truth, and direct your lives according to the creational laws and recommendations. 148. You, however, amongst you who do not search for the truth, you live in selfishness and imperiousness and set yourselves as self-raised godly judges over your fellow human beings, in which case you become unhuman through your belief in a godhead, a tin god or idolized human beings, and you become irrational and fall into a blind raging fanaticism and cowardly murder masses of human beings who believe otherwise through assassinations, and you others who also raise yourselves up as judges over life and death, because you are lustful for murder and greedy for riches. You animate your fellow human beings to commit suicide and take joy in their dying and possessions, once you have murderously given them the deadly poison, and truly you thereby make yourselves guilty of the murder. 149. And truly, you humankind of Earth, you only make yourselves thoughts and feelings about your material life, as a result of which you fully leave the death and the realm of the other world out of your attention, because on the one hand you are cowardly afraid of it and eschew it, and on the other hand you are too presumptuous to think of it. 150. You do not know what the death is, nor what the realm of the other world is. Hence you also cannot understand the two, and cannot know that after every dying there is a new living existence of a new personality, and therefore the running circle of the life always continues. And this process from the birth, of the life and dying, and of the death, i.e. of the death life, is taught to you and explained through the teaching of the prophets, so that you may become knowing and wise, and thus become bearing of the truth. 151. The realm of the other world is a spirit energetical sphere that lies on another side of all your material recognition capabilities, i.e. all of your material senses and all imaginations, but is nevertheless existent and connected with the material world. However, both spheres are differently dimensioned and nevertheless cannot be separated from each other. 152. There is thus no cleft between these two levels, rather a stepless going over. So both build a oneness, as does everything in the entire creation. 153. The spiritual creational energy and power of the creation streams through both the realm of the material world of this world and the realm of the other world. So in both dimensions, i.e. levels, everything is being pulsed through with the same life stream and is connected with one another. 154. Nonetheless, it is wrong to assume that both levels would be integrated into the same laws, since in this regard there is a difference given between the realm of the material and the realm of the spiritual. The material realm can fall ill through all kinds of inequity and come to harm, whereas the purely spiritual realm, to which the realm of the other world also belongs, is taboo with regard to all inequity and harm. 155. Only the material realm of the existence, i.e. life, can be befallen in a harming wise, not however the spirit realm, and therefore also not the spirit, i.e. the spirit form, because it cannot be attacked from out of the material realm and cannot be influenced negatively. 156. It must be understood that the spirit i.e. the spirit form of you human beings is not the factor out of which ideas and thoughts result, contrary to how the religious, psychological, and philosophical irrational teachings explain, because ideas and thoughts come solely out of the energy and power of the consciousness. Therefore, there is no spiritual property for ideas and thoughts, but only a consciousness property. 157. Therefore, out of this it follows, you humankind of earth, that it is not your spirit, i.e. not your spirit form, that can fall ill, but solely and exclusively your consciousness. So there is no spirit illness, but only a consciousness illness. 158. Your material body is also susceptible to illness, in contradiction to the spirit body, as the spirit form, i.e. the spirit in you, is also called as the most minute part of the creation itself, i.e. its spirit energy. 159. And since only your consciousness can fall ill, it can also fall ill to unknowledge and truth and knowledgeness, whereas, however, the illness of unknowledge and of truth and knowledgeness is healable, namely through a learning of the truth and the knowledge. Other consciousness illnesses, however, can be unhealable during the time of an actual life, such as constantly acute insanity or other constantly acute lunacy. Other consciousness illnesses, however, can be healable through appropriate medicines, etc. 160. Consider, however, the realm of this world and the realm of the other world, you humankind of earth, that both are a oneness in themselves, however together also form an inseparable whole, because in the whole realm of the creation every particle is a oneness in itself, however united with its opposite particle, again a completed oneness, and indeed given in such a wise that one particle has a negative and the other particle a positive energy and power. 161. Thus in the whole realm of the creation there is no separation, only a union. So on the one hand, everything is in itself alone for itself, autonomously a oneness, whereas everything unified together again results autonomously in a whole. The term separation is thus solely an invention of you human beings to split things off from each other, whereas you, however, also split all creational things into two parts that in truth belong together, such as the life and the death and the realm of this world and the realm of the other world. And you do this because you separate off that which you cannot see with your eyes and otherwise cannot perceive with your material senses. And you assume yourselves to be the main point and the center in your material surroundings. 162. If you look at and consider yourselves and your possibilities, you humankind of earth, then you may realize that your activity circle and your perception possibilities are very much greater than you generally assume and bring to use. 163. Truly, with your concept and behavior of the separation, you are living in great erroneous assumption. And through this you become curtailed with Gewaltsamkeit through yourselves and become as hindered in your progress as in your development. The evolution of your consciousness, as well as with regard to the truth knowledge. 164. The lack of the truth knowledge leads you into the temptation of indulging in imaginations and in unbridled fantasies, and in creating monster-like pictures of the untruth with regards to all things that you cannot see, perceive, recognize, and understand. Therefore, it is not surprising that you indulge in a religious, ideological, or philosophical belief, that you believe in gods and tin gods, demons, and idolize human beings, and are far from all sense of the truthfully truth and reality, and put on an unknowing smile concerning the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, that is proclaimed and taught to you through the true prophets. You ridicule and slander the real truth of the creation and its laws and recommendations, and fall into the morbid worship of your Godhead, your tin god, or your idolized human beings, in which case you enslave yourselves to them and get very badly out of the control of the good human nature to the point of fanaticism, in which you then massacre, murder, and rob your fellow human beings for the sake of their different belief. their knowledge or their being of another kind, which you then full of. Mockery equate with godly love, punishment, and fairness. 165. Truly, because of your belief in gods, tin gods, and idolize human beings of all kinds, you cannot even be astonished at your own wrongdoing, which is characterized by anxiety, shy fear, and horror, because you already make these grow in you through the in any case wrong religious, ideological, or philosophical education that has been wrongly taught to you through the parents or others with educational authority, or that you teach yourselves. 166. And truly, uncountable ones amongst you, you humankind of earth, you have not grown up or do not grow up, because your consciousness has remained stuck or remains stuck into puberty through the wrong education you have received, while your body grows older and takes on the forms of the adulthood. 167. And since puberty is the factor of pre-adulthood, however, is often not used by you human beings to become really adult with regard to an adult individuality, some of the pubescent behavior carries into the whole life and no longer changes, or only changes somewhat when specific learning circumstances arise, and indeed amongst both the male and the female sex. 168. Puberty is the actual Rambo time of brutality, particularly of the male human being, although the female sex is also not excluded from this. And what is not learned in this time with regard to a positive development of the individuality, i.e. the inner nature, is generally not learned afterwards either, as there is also a continuation in the life concerning anything bad and negative that has not been cast aside. 169. Thus, the self-education in the stage of the puberty is of utmost importance, since that which must be learned in this time, and through which the individuality, i.e. the inner nature, must be formed, determines the further life until the old age, and out of this reason it is very difficult for you, you humankind of earth, to still change to the good and the better, before you have left the time of the puberty, which can stretch from the age of 10 to 17 or even 19, and since the puberty is connected both to the physical development and to the consciousness development, the individuality is also included therein, and is formed until the end of the puberty, which means that during the puberty time, the most important forms of the individuality, i.e. of the inner nature, are formed, and this process accompanies great circumstances of tension. As a result, physiological and hormonal changes to the body and consciousness are brought about, which is why the puberty is also a phase of social, thought-feeling-based as well as psychical unequalizedness. 170. As a rule, the behavior in the puberty is characterized by strong excitement as well as by feeling ambivalence, i.e. feeling doubtfulness, i.e. being torn in the feelings, i.e. relationship contradictoriness, and feeling overboarding, connected with a protesting behavior against the adults and fellow human beings in general, through which orientation difficulties in the social domain, etc. come about. 171. And if some or all of the negative factors of the puberty are not mastered, worked upon, and not brought under control through a healthy social and life-based attitude by the end of the puberty time, and thus influence the main form of the individuality, i.e. the inner nature, then the human being remains totally or partially stuck in his or her puberty and carries forward everything into the whole coming life. 172. The puberty serves you, you humankind of earth, through the effects of the creational laws and recommendations, to evolve to true human beings and become grown up, so that you may live rightfully, in responsibility, righteousness, and conscientiousness, and that you let nothing evil rise up in you. If, however, you do not follow the guidance of the laws and recommendations that are creational, and if you do not use the time and the possibilities of the puberty, then you will live all your life totally or partly in that state, and indeed with all or some of the puberty attributes, which is why you will fall prey to all terrible things, the murdering, the hatred and jealousy, the acting with Goblet, the unpeace and stinginess, the unfreedom, war, disharmony, the pathological craving for revenge, and the pathological craving for retaliation, the avarice, as well as everything else that is of the evil. 173. Be therefore already concerned in your time of the puberty to become true human beings, because after that time it will be so arduous and onerous for you to do so, that you can accomplish it only with great exceptions. Therefore the rule is such that you will remain in all the Ausartungen and live them out throughout your life, as you have brought them up in your puberty. 174. Consider, if you do not fully come out of your puberty, it will last totally or partially during your whole life, so you will not really become an adult, because adulthood does not mean that you become an adult when your body has grown out of the youth age. Rather, you are adults only then, when you have mastered your puberty and have proceeded out of it to become a true human being. If, however, that is not the case, then you will also, during your life after the time of youth, be more or less in small or big parts, captives of your puberty factors. 175. Indeed, the puberty influences are, in the normal case, worked upon amply, so no factors thereof are carried forward into the life, which, however, does not mean that many of you humankind of Earth, are not able to work out certain parts of the puberty problems and thus take parts of them over into the life, and have to bear them throughout their lifetime, such as aggression, acting with Goblet, hatred, disharmony, jealousy, feelinglessness, being torn in the feelings, pathological craving for revenge, pathological craving for strife, etc., which does not rarely lead to murder and manslaughter and even to deeds of war. Therefore, these are to a large extent factors that must be brought under control in the puberty, which is, however, due to a lack of correct education through parents or others with educational authority, as well as through the wrong self-education amongst many of you humankind of Earth, not given in great measure. 176. Your self-education has not ended with the end of the puberty time, because even afterwards it is given that you human beings must work on yourselves throughout your lifetime, in order to become ever truer in being human in the real and true sense. But these factors of learning are not puberty moments carried over into the life, but rather normal life-based learning functions, through which possibilities are given to influence the individuality, i.e. the inner nature, and to form it further to the good and better. 177. Throw away everything that is terrible already in your puberty, so that you do not torment yourselves with it throughout your life, and do not bring terribleness upon yourselves and upon your fellow human beings. 178. You humankind of Earth, bring down the pubertal barriers that you have raised up in you as an erroneous assumption and have taken over into the life, because only if you bring down these barriers, even though this is immensely difficult, will your life have stability, and your whole humankind will have the chance that true love and freedom, as well as harmony and peace, will come amongst you. 179. Your previous wrong attitude towards the life and the duties thereof has created in you a completely wrong basis on which you strive fully in vain, despite great plans and deeds, to find the real truth of all truth in yourselves and in the creational laws and recommendations, which you could build up in yourselves as all-embracing knowledge and great wisdom. 180. If you strive for the effective truth, as you can find it in yourselves and in the laws and recommendations of the creation, then you come across things that free you from your fickleness and your doubts and compulsions, and shatter your whole construct of the irresponsibility, unrighteousness, and consciencelessness, so that you also lose your pusillanimity and give up your resentment. 181. If you humankind of Earth, however, do not follow this guidance, then every one of you will have to bear the disadvantage all alone. As a result, there will be no advancement for you, neither with regard to a progress in the individuality, i.e. in the formation of the inner nature, nor with regard to the consciousness evolution. 182. If you leave the guidance of the progress and the development out of your attention, then you will stand still in useless stagnation, or you will even retreat and fall back into old things and vices, etc., that you had arduously mastered and brought behind you. 183. And if you do not follow the guidance, then you lengthen your way that you must arduously go for the sake of your general progress and your consciousness evolution. 184. But if you find the way of the truth in you, which is itself the truth and the culmination point, then you will bring together knowledge upon knowledge and build it up according to the principle of constant dripping fills the glass. Thus you will become ever more knowing and wiser in the truth, and will begin to live it. 185. And if you have finally comprehended the truth in its entirety as it truthfully is, then you will tread on the right way of the life and will get ever closer to the actual culmination point which is given in the evolution of your consciousness. 186. And truly, if you reach this culmination point and strive for the ongoing consciousness evolution, then the rise up to it will make you great joy and will bring you satisfaction. 187. In the rising up in the consciousness evolution, you can then feel and understand the interaction between all things, how they pulse with the warmness of the life through the whole, through the oneness which is given through the creational, and which thus connects everything with each other in an interacting wise, because everything is driven and held in its existence, life and activity by the creational energy and power. And if you comprehend and understand this, then the shining light of the truth will ignite in you, through which you will fill your life with love and strive unstoppably after the being human in the real and true sense, after peace, freedom, and harmony for yourselves and for your whole humankind. 188. You, however, you humankind of Earth, you must do a lot in order to become true human beings, because many of you live merely in comfort and indolence, which are, together with other things, causes of your mockery against the real truth, because you eschew the efforts to push over the false that you have so far gathered in terms of what you have thought, felt, and learned. Consequently, you are not able to build up anything new, truthfully, valueful, and realistic in yourselves. 189. Truly, you who go along in this wise, you are not able to regulate your accustomed and wrong leading of life in order to bring about a new, healthy, and right mode of life, for it is extremely uncomfortable for you to wring the necessary effort from yourselves for this. 190. Those, however, amongst you, you humankind of Earth, who are more knowing and wiser than the truth unknowers, do not let the unknowers regarding the truth, and therefore also not the irresponsible ones and the conscienceless ones deprave, and do not quarrel with them, but helpfully offer them your knowledge and your wisdom, and teach them the truthfully truth. 191. Do not leave those in the truth unknowledge who search for the truth, and have predominantly come so far to no longer dedicate themselves to the passing pleasures, and to no longer be like animals, which do not think consciously, but merely fill their stomachs with nourishment and live according to their impulses. 192. If they ask you about the real truth and about the creational laws and recommendations as well as about the creation itself, then teach them and give them the cognition for which they ask. And consider, what you pass on in knowledge and wisdom will in turn interactingly increase your knowledge and your wisdom. 193. In the whole realm of the creation, in the universe and in everything that exists therein, the eternal law of cause and effect works, and included in this is also the giving and taking, i.e. the presentation and acceptance of enduring values. 194. This law reaches very deeply and weaves through the whole creation itself, and also, as its bequest, everything that has come into existence through it. 195. The giving and taking, presentation and acceptance shall also be a bequest for you, you humankind of Earth, and indeed to your fellow human beings, to whom you shall selflessly give and help in all things where there is hardship. Thus you shall also pass on your knowledge and your wisdom of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, and the teaching of the life to your next ones and your fellow human beings, if they ask for it. You shall, however, also bring forward understanding, for the misery and the hardship as well as for the inabilities of your next ones and fellow human beings, so that you helpfully turn to them in the right wise, for which you will in turn receive thanks. 196. And if you act seriously in this wise, then you will also receive help back, namely in that new energy, and thereout power will grow in you, because you will feel well and be full of joy and satisfaction. 197. And truly, already a single true and honest thought, and thereout resulting feelings that are of the same kind, with the wish to do good, tear down in you that invisible wall which you have created in yourselves and which, as a hindrance, has made you forget all kindheartedness and all giving. 198. Consider, even if you indulge in the stinginess and deny the truth, which you fear consciously or unconsciously, you are nevertheless closely and inseparably connected with the truth and with the law of giving and taking. 199. Try to set your thoughts and feelings to the giving and taking, the presenting and accepting, and indeed also with regard to your thoughts and feelings, because they are the messengers you send out and that return to you again like a boomerang, both in the good and in the evil. 200. Consider always that your thoughts and the thereout resulting feelings are swinging wave-based energies with great power, that form themselves in the consciousness and become forms that strike your fellow human beings and bring forth distinct effects in them. These energy-rich and powerful swinging waves, however, also store themselves as fluidal powers in your personal things, in your skeleton, and in places where you live, etc. Thus, they outlast your life on Earth and your body, and continue to bring forth effects long after you.